Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Strategy Room interview series. Today, I'm your host, Pete Lawson, and I'm joined by Jason Bell. Now, Jason is getting into the coaching industry, and for all you people that are thinking about getting in there, Jason is going to give you some inspiration today because he's a fantastic leader, coach, etc. Ex-Navy guy.
Yep.
And Jason, thanks again for coming today. Really appreciate it. And Jason, could you tell us a little bit about your story, about what you do and who you are, and a little bit about your journey into the chair where you sit now?
Not a problem. So it started for me way back in the 70s. But fast forward a little bit, joined the military. I was always a fan of math and science, so they challenged me with nuclear power onboard submarines, which is a challenging opportunity. Grew in that, started to manage and shape the younger minds behind me. Um, and then while exiting the military, managed to complete undergrad in mechanical engineering and got a job as a veteran getting out of the military. You want at least one job. Zero jobs is horrible, but anything more than one job offer is wonderful. So I kind of focused on any job, anywhere, doing anything. And I think that was a mild mistake, but I made the best of it. Um, a few years into it, I didn't feel comfortable in my organization, so I went out to get more education to get an MBA. And during that process, I learned a lot more phrases and job opportunities and terminologies associated with the business world I'd just never been exposed to before. The people in my cohort were very welcoming and interested in hearing stories about submarines and some of the junk that I've signed waivers that I can never tell anybody, but I was interested in hearing about finance and marketing and how did you get here? My 20 years being underwater, I missed a lot. So, what does an accountant do from day to day and things of that nature? After soaking all that in, I came across the idea of executive coaching, another thing I'd never heard of before. And once I found out that executive coaching is using your knowledge and power and experience to empower another individual so they can become the best they can be, I realized I had been executive coaching for 2 to 3 decades, but I had never known that was a title of what I was doing. So I decided to try to formalize this thought and attended one uh, coaching education course. It took around 6 months in order to learn the coaching principles, do one-on-ones, have other mentor coaches watch me coach, and become certified. And once becoming certified, I said, I have this thing, I have this talent. How do I put it out in the world? And that is where I am now of putting the word out there and letting people know I'm available and I care. And I have a couple pro bono clients, but the feel good that I get is good enough for now to get me to the next step. But I'm enjoying it, and I think the people that I work with are enjoying working with me.
Very interesting. I mean, you've been through that executive circuit, you're now dealing with entrepreneurs. So, can you share the story of what inspired you to become a business coach?
Great question. Well, so the way I see it, there's a couple different realms of coaching.
Mm.
Um, when I say business coach, I think of I'm coaching the business owner in a business, and then executive coaching is me coaching an executive in which the sponsor, the corporation, is paying for me to coach that executive. And then there's one-on-one where it's just an individual that has goals. Some might call it life coaching, but I think that's like three different buckets. So for me, as I reflect on my life, I think most of my struggles came from trying to understand my place in the corporate world, uh, and helping ask people, my clients, those questions of like, what do you think you're going to get? What do you want? How are you going to get there? Why is this not a good fit? Are questions that I kind of asked myself, but had no formulaic way to answer it while I struggled in the corporate world. So that's why I'm more um, interested in people in the corporate sector because I want them to break free of the beliefs that they have and become their best version of themselves.
Fantastic. Tell me, Jason, you're telling about, working with people, getting them to become who they want to become. But how do you actually measure success in your coaching practice?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think success is almost like one of those things that's urban legend, you know. So defining success is one of the things that I routinely go over with my clients, and success for me is them redefining their level of success. Um, for example, I used to believe just being a millionaire by whatever means, no matter how I got there, is I made it. I make that dollar sign, that pinnacle. And now, I'm happily married with 3 children, and that's not that important anymore. It's it's now I have new values that I'm working towards, and that top line dollar sign is not as important. So
Yeah.
when I see my clients genuinely thinking, especially when considering success, where did that idea come from? How did you latch on to this? What does it mean to you? And watching them redefine it, that is success for me, to be able to challenge their ideas.
Okay. Talking about, staying on the success thing and what you're getting with your clients, the satisfaction, etc. What would be the most important lesson that you've learned from your clients?
That I've learned from my clients.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. I think one of the phrases that I try to instill in people, I don't know if it's copyrighted or anything, because some of these things I get, I shoot from the hip, right?
Okay.
Is that every idea that you've had came from somewhere. And when we talk and when I coach, going down memory lane to think, where's the first time you heard of the idea, that smoking was cool, or,
Yeah.
leather shoes are for rich people? Like, you take your time. Where did that come from? And for people to go back to that point and almost look at themselves, and then to include a classic Brian Tracy quote, knowing what you know now, is that still a relevant assumption that you should continue to believe in?
Yep. Okay. So, just going back, because you've been in, physically in the coaching business for about 7 odd months now with Focal Point, what have you, which is great. But in your experience, what's the hardest part about being a coach? I mean, you even mentioned before when we were talking, Jason, that you really actually didn't know you'd been coaching for 20 years. So
Yeah.
you do have a history of it. You just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So what's the hardest part?
The hardest part of coaching, that's a good question. As I think about it now, I think that I'm comfortable with challenging people as a coach,
Yeah.
but I think it's how some clients come to our realization that this is going to be harder than they thought. Like, it's almost like I want to be easier
Mm-hmm.
to help them come to the realization, but from coaching, like, you can't do more work than the client. And if they're not coming to their own conclusions,
Yeah.
then the hardest part is just sitting back and waiting. Like, it's right there in front of you. I can't tell you what it is. You have to get there yourself. So that's difficult.
Okay. Just okay. So then you're really into relationships. So what strategies do you recommend for building and maintaining strong relationships?
Ooh. Man, well, you coming with some 1-2s there, sir.
I can get easier if you like.
No. We got to keep it at this level. I think the hardest thing, or the best way to maintain relationships, is one, listening, and two, a phrase that me and my spouse use all the time is believe that the other person has good intentions.
Yes.
Or did not come here to mess things up.
Yeah.
If you genuinely believe and listen that this person has a positive spin on it, then we can get to the end of almost any conversation.
Perfect. Just another one here. Okay, so what advice would you give to new coaches just starting on their journey?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think for every coach that I've met associated with Focal Point, none of it is about the money.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it's about the effect that you're having on other people. And for me, seeing their lives and for me keeping up with the people, like, how's things going, that's the rewarding part. So keeping your eyes on the prize of why you're doing this, and if you do need money, then have a small cushion before you get into this, because there's going to be that build up period, or work a day job and coach on the side. But with every new venture, you have to have a financial plan. So consider that before jumping into coaching.
Well, that's great advice, Jason. Absolutely fantastic advice. That's a bell ringer. That one, with that one, I'm going to close the show, my friend.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Look, Jason, thank you very much. I'd like to continue this conversation after we finish our podcast today. That's the end of our official podcast, folks, today. And Jason, I thank you so much for coming and sharing your entrepreneurial experience and the experience that you've also gained from that military training. It's been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Okay, to everyone watching, how about a big round of applause for Jason? And whether you're in the morning, whether it's the evening, or whether it's the afternoon, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and looking forward to seeing you at the next episode.